Hey guys, Bad Avenger. I'm back with some books that I want to show you. Some of them are have some value to it. Some you can find in the dollar bin. Some you might have to hunt a little bit for. But all in all, these are some great books to have in your collection. Featuring starting with Supergirl number 58. This is a beautiful cover. Since we're on the Supergirl 12 Art Germ covers, is starting to make it more prominent that now people are searching for beautiful covers. So I went back and looked in my boxes and my collection and started pulling out some books that I figure might interest you or that you might want to try to hunt down in the hunt. Some books you might find in a dollar bin, some books you won't. You're going to have to really hunt for. But this Supergirl number 58 is a great cover by an artist last name Majors. Let me see his first name, Guy Majors did this cover for Supergirl number 58. Beautiful, beautiful cover. Here's an early Middleton, Supergirl number 43. Very beautiful cover. You probably can find both of these two books in a dollar bin. This one, you may. This is Power Girl number 13. And this is done by an artist named Basira. Let me hold on one second. I'm going to do it right. Basri. He did that cover of Power Girl number 13. Another beautiful cover. So I went back and started pulling other books out of my collection that I figure you would like to have in your collection, and some of them have a little bit of prominence. I always loved Moebius's version of Silver Surfer. It was one and a two issue limited series, and Moebius has his own way of drawing. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, it's just different from the rest. I mean, to me, back then, now you got so many artists now that are taking influence from each other that kind of, I remember back in the 90s when Jim Lee was like the top artist. And it's like everybody in Marvel that was working for Marvel kind of like had to emulate Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld type art. And it got wild. You just had all these artists that were just drawing Jim Lee or Liefeld instead of being their own artist. But Moebius is quite an artist in his own right. He's kind of like one of the forgotten great artists of the industry. Here's another great one to have in your collection. John Byrne's Silver Surfer. Great, great book. You know, I'm a John Byrne. I love John Byrne's art back in the day. He doesn't do too much as far as I know now, but I mean, back in his heyday, he was the tops. And not only for his art, for his storytelling. I mean, he revitalized Fantastic Four. He had a hand in X-Men. You know, everything he touched back then, and he did Namor, revitalized Namor. It's like everything he touched at that time. I mean, Fantastic Four. I think I just said Fantastic Four. But phenomenal artist and writer. It's a nice book to have in your collection. Solar Man of the Atom, #1 from Valiant, when Valiant first started out. I have mostly all the early Valiants when they first started out under Jim Shooter. A lot of them I collected. I loved Valiant back in that time period. Their art was basic, but the stories were so great. I think that's what kind of like turned a lot of people off of Valiant. The art was just basic, but it was done by great artists. I think they kept it basic for a purpose. You know, they wanted their storytelling to really show, and they had some great stories. Also have to show Solar Man and the Atom #10. This book has never been opened. I've never opened it. I have the other one with the Roman numeral 2. That one I did open, but this one I did not. It's a great book to try to hunt down. Super Friends #1. This book has been up and down in price. Like I said, I love books that deal with the cartoon animated side of superheroes. I get a kick out of them. Excuse me. Swamp Thing number 50. This is supposedly the first appearance of Justice League Dark. I mean, you call it what you want. It is what it is. It's a great book to have in your collection. This book has a warm spot in my heart. I remember when I bought this book, and I love Alan Moore's writing. Um, he has a way with stories, and this story has been done over and over again in so many different ways. It's also been in the cartoons in some form or fashion. You know, it's Supergirl and her television show. It kind of took bits from this storyline with her, and great story, great story. What do you buy? It was Superman's birthday, and Mongol had given him the ultimate gift, and I don't want to tell any more about it. Even though it's an older book, that's a book you need to find for yourself and read. It really is great. Also, excuse me, Superman Red Sun. I picked this up. Actually, I got this book, believe it or not, in a dollar bin. And when I saw it, I was like, get out of here. And I scooped it up. I mean, I wasn't, I was so happy to have it in my collection. Also, if you're a Titans fan, you need to try to track down these. Tales of the Titans, the miniseries. Number one, this is George Perez all the way. And this first issue is dealing with a first solo story of Cyborg. And number two had Stand Out for Raven. Great covers. And number three was Changeling, or what we call Beast Boy. You know, I like Beast Boy better than Changeling. You know. And the last one in that series was Starfire. Great issues to have if you can get a hold of them. I don't think you'll find them in the dollar bin, but I mean, stranger things have happened, but they're still great to have in any collection. Now, I found this one in the dollar bin, another one, Bloodshot Zero, but with the gold lettering at the top. They're supposedly worth way a lot more money than standard white lettering with the foil, great cover. I remember when I bought this years ago. This is Dark Horse Presents number one. And I really like Black Cross. It's a shame that they never did really too much with him. He was like Punisher in like a Mad Max type of world. It was a great story. And it's really a shame that they didn't do anything with him. I mean, they might have tried, but I don't know. Some strange things happen. Some Brave and the Bold. Jim Aparo, the man. To me, I always identify Jim Aparo with Batman. I think he drew Batman longer than anybody else. And sometimes he was hit or miss, but to me, I think of Batman, I think of Jim Aparo, Neil Adams too, but you know, Jim Aparo and his Brave and the Bold stories were great. This is number 149 of Brave and the Bold with Batman and Teen Titans, the original Teen Titans. Also got Brave and the Bold number 160 with Batman teaming up with Supergirl. I always like the dynamic of Supergirl with anybody in the Bat family. I like what they're doing now with her teaming up with Batgirl. And if they did another World's Finest book, that's who they should give it to. Batgirl and Supergirl. I think they make a great team. A different dynamic than Batman and Superman, you know, because they're more of a seasoned character, you know. With Batgirl and Supergirl, you would have a fresher team that can make mistakes and learn from their mistakes and so on and so forth. Back when Joe Quesada was with DC, he did Batman Sword of Azrael. He was at Jeppy's Comics back in the day. That's when Steve Jeppy used to have comic book shops before he stopped, shut them down, and became Diamond, distributors. But he had quite a few guests. Like I said, I talked about meeting Jim Lee way back in the past. And Quesada was there. This is in 1992. He signed it and put the date. Back in the day, you had artists come to comic book shops, and they wouldn't charge you to sign, just sign, and you could sit down and talk to them because it wasn't a big crowd coming in at Jeppy's at the time, and you got to really listen to what they were saying. And it's like now, I mean, I really see through videos, 'cause I haven't been to a convention, it's just like a mob show now. It's kind of like it's more impersonal as far as getting stuff signed. Yeah, some of them do have the ability to sit down and talk to the creators, but it's not like it was back in the day. I mean, it was just, I guess, because it was burgeoning. It was a burgeoning thing with comic books, direct market, and all. It was just really taking off, and it just was a different time period. And I'm so glad that I was in that time period. A lot easier going. Some great Harlequin covers that these are hard to find, but if you can find them in the wild and you can get them cheap, jump on them, because early Harlequin appearances in any of the animated comics are worth money. Batman and Robin Adventures number 8, case in point. Number 21, this is with Batgirl on the cover. This is a great cover. I think it's a Ty Templeton cover. Yeah, it is Ty Templeton's art. Great, great cover. You can get that one. That one does have a little value to it too. Here's a great Harley cover from Batman Gotham Adventures number 10. Another one with Harley, Batman Gotham Adventures number 14. This is one of my favorites. It's not a Harley one, but it's Batman and Flash. Number 25 of Batman Gotham Adventures. Number 29 has both Harley and Poison Ivy on the cover. Now, this book here is just really surprising me. This book is like rocketing in price. And I'm glad I finally got one. I got this one for, I can't remember, somewhere around $11 or $15. This book, graded 9.8, is roughly hitting close to $300. I'm glad I got my copy, and it's in great, great shape. The spine is flawless. There's no dings at all, and I'm just glad I got it. I'm so glad. Batman and Robin Adventures number 1 annual with Joker dressed up as the Mask of Phantasm, which was a great cartoon. Back in the day when that cartoon was rolling, it was nothing like it on TV. It kind of reminded me how the Flintstones were back in prime time, way back in the day. And then this came along and it was prime time, Batman and Robin. And it took the world by storm. And it hasn't been the same since. This Batgirl Special number 1 came out in 1988. Mike Mignola cover. Great, great book to have if you can get a hold of it. This is a great book to have. Rom Space Knight number 1. Great book to have. Especially now with Rom's reemergence. And they got him mixing with Transformers. I don't know. Rye number 4 and number 3. I'll show you number 3. These books are rare. They're hard to find anywhere because they were had a very low print run of those 2 issues for some reason. And trying to find them. If you see it, I would advise you to get it, especially with what's going on with Valiant now. but their prominence starting to become more, and they're talking about making movies and this and that. But issue 4 and issue 3 of Rye are very hard to get. And if you can find them in the wild or wherever, I would advise you to get it. Here's another cover book that I always like, Supergirl number 20. Just the simplistic nature of the cover, was great. This book doesn't really have value. It has some value, but not much. It's Pacific Comics is Ms. Mystic. This is all Neal Adams. And I'm surprised these books are so cheap. You can find them in dollar bins, really. But the fact that it's a Neal Adams property, Neal Adams story, Neal Adams character, it's wild how this is not more prominent. He had quite a few of books at that time that he had out, and they're easy to find. One of my favorite books at the time, back in the day, the Micronauts, Michael Goldenart, was great. I love Micronauts. I think I followed it all the way up until they changed over to direct only. And I think at that time, that's when I stopped buying the books. But I loved the way it was drawn. And the infamous issue number 8, the first appearance of Captain Universe, is a great issue to have. That's super hard to find. And if you do find that one, this is more easier to find. But I love, like I said, I just love Micronauts. Back in the day, Marvel did some series of books. He had Scooby-Doo. This was the Laugh Olympics from the old cartoon back in the day. Here's another Harley book from Justice League Unlimited, number 41. Book's worth a little bit of money, and it's got Joker on the cover with Batman's cowl. It's another great book to have in your collection. The Jim Starlin cover with Firestorm joining the Justice League of America. This is issue number 179. Cool book to have in your collection. Great book here to have in your collection. 184 of Justice League with Darkseid, and you got Power Girl in it, and you got Justice League and the GSA and the New Gods. You can't ask for more. This is a great Jonah Hex cover. It's just beautiful. Frank Quitely did this cover. And to me, this is one of the best Jonah Hex renditions that I've ever seen. Beautiful, beautiful cover. Here's a great book that I loved back in the day. Incredible Hulk number 300. This book is so great. This is where all the heroes have to turn on the Hulk because he's just gone. His brain is gone. So he's just the Hulk. And he's just tearing the country apart. And they have to fight him to try to stop him. And it eventually ends up with Doctor Strange banishing him into another dimension, But great story. Here's a sleeper for you. Book 1 and Book 2 of History of the DC Universe. These are, I don't know if they're hard to find, but it's great to have in anybody's collection if you want to know. Well, now the history of DC has changed again, or before even what's happened with Rebirth and New 52, it had changed again anyway. But this was a great book by Marv Wolfman and George Perez's 2-book set, Book 1 and Book 2. If you can find them, they're great to have in your collection. I did like Jonah Hex. He was somehow pulled into a Mad Max type of future for a while. And it was a weird book. It was okay. I liked it. But it was just, to me, it took Hex too far out of his element. It just took him way too far. but it was cool. I mean, it is what it is. Hex, number one. Sergio Aronzanes, I know I'm not saying his last name right, but his Grew the Wanderer was one of the funniest books going out, and it lasted for quite a long time. This is the Pacific Comics issue number one. I also have, when he transitioned over to Marvel, um, issue number one from Marvel, his Epic line. I'm surprised they haven't animated this yet. You know, kind of in the vein of Mutant Ninja Turtles and Usagi Yojimbo. Great. It's so many though. He had. I mean, I don't have too many copies of it, but I know it. This book lasted for quite a while. Here's a good book to have in your collection too. First Killer Frost, Firestorm number 3, Firestorm the Nuclear Man, and my final two books are some of the old Fantastic Four. 186, the first appearance of Salem 7, and last but not to be the least, Fantastic Four number 209, the first appearance of Herbie the Robot. I think when they did the Fantastic Four cartoon, they had some. I even understand how they couldn't have the Human Torch in it, but there was some kind of clause or something. I don't know, but they had to come up with a fourth member, so they bring in Herbie the Robot for that animation series. And later on, they bring him into the comic book series, which was kind of funny, you know. And that's basically my, I can't say haul because these are all books that I've had. But these are some of the books, like I said, a few of the books that I have in my collection that are pretty good to invest in or to have, you know. Well, this is Bad Avenger. Y'all guys take care of yourself. And I am calling it a day.